Build this road. Build this road. Build this. No, I didn't vote for him. I promise. So, another week, another episode of Penny Dreadful, City of Angels. And this week's episode had a lot happen in it, and I'm going to give my overall thoughts off the top, but I'm also going to go into spoilers after that. So if you're interested in hearing my overall thoughts, you can watch that, but if you don't want spoilers, come back later. But if you're new to the channel and if you're interested in seeing my weekly reviews, I highly recommend subscribing and not missing a thing. So, getting into this week's episode, which was titled Dead People Lie Down. So I liked that this episode, I felt like they built up all the plot lines a little bit more. They gave things a little bit more focus, a little bit more development. I felt like the writing was sharper. All the scenes made more sense. There were scenes last week where I was like, I don't know why this scene happened. I don't know how it contributes to the overall plot. And some of it was just establishing scenes, but they weren't interesting establishing scenes. So I just appreciated the way that this episode was developed. I felt like the writing was a lot less on the nose. I felt like the pilot had to set up a lot very quickly, and I appreciated that this episode I felt like was a little bit more deliberate, even though it's still setting up a few more plot lines. I enjoyed the introduction of Kerry Bishe's character. I don't think she's an amazing character just yet, but I think that she's interesting and she seems like a very good addition to the show. I appreciated the overall expanding of the mystery. They haven't had a ton of major events happen this episode, but overall it was worth watching, and if they keep going in this direction, I think I'll be more interested in the show every week. Still don't feel like there's a ton of atmosphere. I wish they would explore the supernatural elements of the story more. There were really not a lot of supernatural aspects to this episode, but I understand that John Logan is trying to kind of explore, cathartically through this show, what's happened in America in the last 5 years, and Magda really represents the devil on people's shoulder and how normal people can be led to support evil causes. So I understand them taking a less supernatural approach because they don't want to undercut the real evil of racism and discrimination that exists by, giving people a scapegoat, kind of like Wonder Woman did with the character of Eris. But overall, good episode. Interested to see the world expanded further. Could have used some more supernatural elements myself. Now, getting into specifics. I appreciated the scenes at the hospital at the beginning of the episode. I think so many times in shows, people miss opportunities to, show the human consequences of the big, events. And the big event at the end of last episode, obviously, was the fight between the police and the Hispanic community that were protesting the building of this highway. And I felt like it was good to go to the hospital and show all the dead and injured. And obviously the police are upset and they don't give a lick about the injured people in the Hispanic community. And man, I really don't like the way that this show is portraying the police, but I'm sure it's relatively accurate for the time. I just don't care about it. I think that it's the whole banality of evil thing. Racism is not that interesting, and it's not my favorite thing to see explored in television, to be honest. I know that, it's a reality that's uncomfortable and we don't like to confront, but I've seen it confronted so many times in so many shows in the last year. I'm just a little bit worn out by it. I feel like a lot of other people feel this way. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I've never been the personal victim of it, so maybe I should shut up, but that's just how I feel. So I really did appreciate the way that they're exploring the relationship between Tiago, played by Daniel Zovatto, and Louis, played by Nathan Lane further. Obviously, I feel like Tiago is interesting mainly because of his circumstances. I think he's interesting because he's caught between these two worlds, between his family and the law enforcement community. And obviously he made a big decision last week that could cost him dearly because Mateo, his brother, says he saw him shoot Raul, and that if Raul dies, he's out of the family. And I appreciated that because they are partners, they're protecting each other, and you see Lewis reacting violently when the cops treat Tiago badly and being very, very protective of Tiago. I think Nathan Lane is killing it in this role. He really is just a spitfire and giving the dialogue, which I think they've written a lot better dialogue for his character than they have for Tiago's character. But it's just very colorful dialogue, and he delivers it with a lot of verve, and it comes off of his tongue as if he was born to say it. And, I'm just enjoying that character. Obviously, Tiago's a lot less showy. He's kind of like the Jon Snow of this series, where he's very earnest, very sincere. We root for him because he's an underdog, and he's, a good-looking fellow and very, very honest and virtuous. But, I just don't find him terribly interesting as an individual just yet. He's more interesting for his place in this story as a person struggling with two identities. I really, appreciated the scenes between Zovatto and Sister Molly, played by Kerry Bishe. Obviously, I think that they're exploring, the start of the televangelist movement, and obviously she's not on television. She's a charismatic radio evangelist. But you see that she seems very sincere, but I think that her mother, Miss Adelaide, played by Amy Madigan, is taking advantage of her, keeping her separate from her congregation, but not so that they don't care about her, but so that she won't care about them. That seemed pretty obvious. This to me just seems like a season 1 plot line that probably isn't going to be the romance that they follow up in subsequent seasons. It kind of reminds me of a similar relationship that Josh Hartnett's character was in season 1 of the original Penny Dreadful, but we'll see where it goes. I didn't think that these characters necessarily had a ton of chemistry, but I think chemistry is overrated. I felt like they seemed like they had a pretty earnest and sincere conversation, and the kind of conversation that I think that often happens between strangers when they're, getting to know each other, and they opened up to each other a lot. I felt like they had a good personal connection. And I'm interested to see it explored further. I thought they did a good job of not doing on-the-nose dialogue in this scene. They implied a lot with very, very small things in the scene. For instance, the way we found Sister Molly, that she's just washing this dish, like that she has this humility to her, that she is not above all these things. We got to see a little bit more of Councilman Charlton Townsend, played by Michael Gaddis, and we got to see the Magda in the role of Alex, influencing him some more. I'm kind of sick of the Trump-esque villains on television for the same reason. I'm just kind of sick of the racists on television. It's not that I object to the portrayal. I did not vote for Trump. I will not vote for Trump. But I just find it so boring because it's so, they're just not interesting to see portrayed. And it is, to me, propaganda, and it's just not that interesting. Obviously, I just felt the parallels were so on the nose with this character that he's going to make this road a symbol of kind of fighting back against the Hispanic and Chicano community. I'm just not that interested in this character, and I don't even think he would need Alex in his life to make him do these things. He's just the kind of person who would do it anyway. She's just strengthening his resolve, which I guess is kind of the point of her character, but I feel like a person like him would do this stuff with or without Magda's influence. Obviously, we got to see Dr. Kraft spend a little time at the beach with Elsa, and we had her show up in his bedroom. Not sure if that was if she was actually there or if that was just a fantasy in his mind. Not sure if we were supposed to know. Obviously, she has a very creepy child, which I'm not sure what the nature of this child is exactly. We got to see a very neat disappearing trick with this child last episode. Very creepy child. Obviously, the episode's title comes from a line spoken by the child, "Dead people lie down." And I feel like with Dr. Kraft, played by Rory Kinnear, we're really seeing the exploration of how good people support evil causes explored the most, because he is this character who seems like a good person, maybe even is a quote-unquote good person, but he's supporting a horrible cause. And obviously Elsa is pushing him further in that direction. Although why she's going after him, I'm not really sure, because he doesn't seem that important. We also got to see a little bit of Lewis investigating the Nazis in LA, and particularly he saw Richard Goss, played by Thomas Kretschmann. We got to see a little bit more of his character and some other Third Reich sympathizers who seemed to be setting up something to do with explosives at UCLA, I believe. This is an interesting plot line. I feel like there's a lot of Jewish representation on television right now. I find Jewish characters to be entertaining and amusing, but they tend to be a little bit stereotypical. The episode ended obviously with a character portrayed by Richard Kind getting murdered. Didn't really get to know these characters that well. I kind of felt like this murder just happened so that we could kind of have a big moment, but it wasn't really a big moment because we hardly got to know these characters. But I don't know how Lewis is having time to do this on the side when his commissioner has just told him he has to wrap up the case. And when he says wrap up the case, just find someone, doesn't matter if it's the right person. Obviously, the episode ended with Santa Muerte showing up to save Raul. And let's see what kind of condition he is in when we get to see a little bit more of him next week. He could be Frankenstein's monster. Who knows what kind of condition he's in, but clearly he was going to die. And Maria, played by Adriana Barraza, her prayers to Santa Muerte brought him back from the brink. And it's going to be interesting to see how he reacts with Tiago, if they interact going forward. We also got to see this week a new character, Fly Rico, played by Sebastian Chacon. We got to see him interact with Mateo, Tiago's brother. And I feel like this seems like a subplot to many at this point, but I'm not going to complain until I see more. The character is charismatic, but I don't feel like that interesting. So overall, enjoyed this week's episode. Good building episode. I wouldn't call it a filler episode because they used all the time that they had. But overall, I didn't think that they had anything super, super compelling or interesting. No mind-blowing moments. It was just a solid episode, which was more than I thought the first week was. Although maybe that was just me having a bad perspective. I don't really know. If I rewatched that episode, whether I would think it was better than I did initially or not. So those are my thoughts, but let me know what you thought. Let me know if you feel like there should be more supernatural elements or if you're enjoying the more down-to-earth investigation going on. Let me know who your favorite character is. Let me know if you feel like certain plot lines are more interesting than others. Let me know what you're most excited to see explored in future episodes. And as always, you can watch more videos right now.